If you could, please put your hands together as he makes his way to the stage for Mr. Dean Dillon. Songwriter Hall of Fame, BMI icon in 2013. Welcome back, Dean. Glad to see you again.
How in the hell's everybody doing? I'm running a little on empty tonight. Been burning that road up. Hell, I thought I'd get this old and things would slow down. They've kind of spun out of control. I'm gonna take you through about 35 years of my life and songs and stories. I got my first guitar when I was 7 years old, and like everybody in America, I watched the Beatles on TV and decided that's what I wanted to do, and talked my mean-ass stepdad into buying me a guitar. It didn't take long to learn to play it because I'd sit in my room for hours at a time and bang on that thing. And I remember I played Gloria at my first talent show when I was 8. And then when I was 14, I entered the TVA and I Fair talent contest. And it came down to me and a flaming baton twirler. And she dropped her baton. And just so you all know, I ain't high or stoned or anything, but there's a lot of lights going on in here tonight. It kind of bothers my eyes. And then first prize of that contest was a guest appearance on Jim Clayton's Star Time and Clayton Mobile Homes. Maybe you know that name. I don't know. Some of you might. Largest mobile home producer in the country. And he had a show on Friday nights in Knoxville. And I got to be a guest on his show. And then they called me back the following Monday and asked me to be a regular. So all during high school, I did that show on Fridays. And then I'd go to the Civic Auditorium in Knoxville on the weekends and see Roger Daltrey and the Who. And the Winters Brothers. And just all this array of music. All the while listening to Merle Haggard sing Freddie Powers songs. And it wasn't really till I heard Carole King and James Taylor that the light bulb went off in my head. And I thought, man, if you could take the country lyrics and put these James Taylor, Carole King melodies to them, wonder what that would do. And it's kind of been the story of my life. When you got songs like Marina Del Rey that did that, and The Chair and stuff like that. And so I struck out for Nashville when I turned 18. I hitchhiked down there, and this old hippie in a 66 station wagon picked me up. And my hair was a little longer than what it is now. And I got a haircut last week. Actually washed it today. And he pulled over the side of the road at Gallagher View exit, Oak Ridge, Gallagher View exit. Got in the car and he asked me, "Do you smoke pot?" And I said, duh. And he got back out of the car, said, come here a minute. And we walked around the back, and he pulled that back door of that Chevrolet up, and there was 2 compartments on either side, and they were stuffed full of marijuana. And I thought, one of 2 things are going to happen here. We're going to have fun getting there, or we ain't going to make it. A little warm. But we did, or I did, yeah. It took me just a half a day to make the cross he'd bear, and so just 15 minutes for the crown of thorns he'd wear. Simon from Cyrene, they made him carry the cross as he marched into the place of the skull and offered him wine and gall. But Jesus wouldn't take it. Some cried, set him free. And someone turned to me and asked, now who do you believe? Do you take him at his word, for it's a double-edged sword? Is he a lunatic, a liar, or the Lord? Well, my name is Jonas. My trade is nails and men. But this one, oh, he's different than any other one of them. With the first spike in his right hand, I looked him in the eye. The guilty ones cry out for shame, but his, they did not lie. It was too early for the sunset, yet so dark we could not see. When I heard his voice cry out, my God, why have you forsaken me? We just cast our lots for his clothes, for none of us were sure. Was he a lunatic, a liar, or the Lord? Well, we gathered in our room, in our sorrow and despair, when Mary rushed from the tomb, said, our Lord, he is not there. And suddenly he appeared to us, with spike marks on his feet, reached out his hands of blood and love, and turned to them and me. I said, now who do you believe? Do you take me at my word? For it's a double-edged sword. Am I a lunatic, a liar, or the Lord? Oh, I take him at his word. He's my shield and sword. He's no lunatic, no liar. Oh, he's my Lord. I thought we'd start things off on the right foot. So anyway, I found myself over in Nashville, and I didn't know a soul, and hell, I didn't know where Music Row was till somebody pointed it out to me, and I went over and started beating on doors and literally knocking on publishing companies' doors and asking if there's anybody listening to my songs, and got kicked out of the first couple, and then I saw a sign that said Cedarwood Publishing Company, and I knew that Mel Tillis wrote for Cedarwood, because I used to get Country Song Roundup, and I'd look up all the lyrics and who published them and who wrote the songs, and so I go in there, and receptionist sitting there, and I asked her, was there anybody who listened to my songs? And about that time, this guy about 6'4" walks around the corner and says, yeah, come on back, and I'll listen. And so I go back in his office, and the phone rings. And he sits on that phone for about 15 minutes, and I'm nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof. I'm 18, weigh 135 pounds, soaking wet, and I'm sitting there, man, just going, get off the phone. I want to play some stuff. And after about 15 minutes, he hung that phone up, and he looked at me, and he said, you know what? He said, get your hair cut and come back, and I'll listen to your songs. And I'm not going to tell you what I was thinking. But I bet you're pretty good mind readers. Funny thing about all that is, 2 years later, I had procured a job at Upperland USA portraying Hank Williams, and had to have that clean-cut, all-American look. And the guy that ran that theme park, Bob Whitaker, he knew that there were a bunch of us that worked there that were wannabe songwriters. And so he set up a songwriters night, and invited all the Music Row down, and they showed up, believe it or not. And I got up and sang my 3 songs, and I walked off stage, and there stood that guy. He didn't recognize me. And he said, man, I love you, those songs you played. He said, can you bring some to my office next week? And I said, get your hair cut, and I will. You can't make that shit up, people. So anyway, I got signed by a publishing company who was run by Charlie Pride, Jerry Bradley, and Tom Collins. Pie Jim Chess Music signed me, and while I was working out at the park, one of the writers came out, John Schweers, and heard me and introduced me to Tom, and he signed me to a publishing deal, $50 a week. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. So for the next couple of years, all I did 5 days a week from 9 to 5 was literally write songs when I wasn't playing the park. And in 1979, I had my first #1 record with Jim Ed Brown and Helen Cornelius, called Lying in Love with You. And when I first got to Nashville, I met one of the first songwriters I met. The first songwriter I met was a guy named Frank Dykes. And when Lying in Love with You went to #1, I saw him again, and that morning I had been writing with an old songwriter named Shel Silverstein. And he was nice enough to do it, write with me. And from 10 till noon, we wrote probably what was one of the worst things I've ever written in my life. And I thought, man, I've screwed this up. he'll never write with me again. And I was feeling really down about it. And I was walking out the Third Coast, and who in the gate should appear but Frank Dykes. And I hadn't seen him in a few years. And reintroduced myself and told him I had a record deal and an idea for a song. And we sat there that afternoon and wrote this. Give me a bottle of your very best. I got a problem I'm on the drain off my chest. Gonna spend the night getting down. That woman that I had wrapped around my finger just come on round. Yeah, that woman that I had wrapped around my finger just come on round. Kick me out of the house tonight, I'm whiskey bound. I'm gonna be Blondie, the drunkest fool in town. That woman that I had wrapped around my finger just come on round. You know she packed my bag, open up that door. I got a feeling she didn't want me around no more. Caught me in a lie, I was fooling around. That woman that I had wrapped around my finger just to come unwound. That woman that I had wrapped around my finger just come unwound. Kick me out of the house tonight, I'm whiskey bound. I'm gonna be Blondie, the drunkest fool in town. That woman that I had wrapped around my finger just come unwound. Yeah, that woman that I had wrapped around my finger just to come on. Thank you. Appreciate it. So we wrote that song in about an hour and a half sitting out there in the veranda of that Rock and Roll Hotel. Rock and Roll Hotel was on 18th. That's where all the rock and rollers come and stayed in town when they were playing in Nashville. Me and Dickie Betts and Gary Stewart actually threw a TV out the third floor window one night. And we split it even. And they were heavy back then. It wasn't like they make them now. So me and Dykes wrote that song and went over to his publishing house over on 17th. There was a Budweiser truck that run by there every day at 4 o'clock. And he bet me $10 that I couldn't talk that driver out of a case of beer. I did it. He lost, and we're sitting there popping tops on these buds. And one of our buddies, Blake Mevis, comes flying down the street and slides into the curb, rolls his window down and says, "Hey, I'm fixing to cut this kid from Texas. You all got any songs?" And I said, "Well, we just wrote this thing called Unwound. We were going to pitch to Johnny Paycheck, but he's in jail." And people, 35 years ago, yesterday, Unwound was released on radio. Went top 10 for George Strait. And the funny thing about it is back in those days, and if you had great songs, you didn't pitch them to an unknown artist, and George was definitely unknown outside San Antone, really, San Marcos. And devil be damned, Dykes and I really didn't look at it like that way. We just looked at it as an opportunity to pitch every damn thing we had. And we wound up with 6 songs on his first album. And George never forgot it. Said goodbye in Marina Del Rey. Had a good time was the last thing I heard her say. As I walked away, and on that plane back to Tennessee, my mind comes across her memory. And yesterday in Marina Del Rey, the hidden beach under a golden sun, she spread a blanket that we laid down on and loved the world away. In Marina Del Rey, and as we looked into each other's eyes, found our bodies lost in paradise like castaways in Marina Del Rey. Like the ocean tides, highs and lows, love sometimes it comes and goes away. In Marina Del Rey, and as this old plane is touching down, tears touch my eyes, for I have found my heart has stayed in Marina Del Rey. And a hidden beach under a golden sun, she spread a blanket that we laid down on and loved the world away in Marina Del Rey. And as we looked into each other's eyes, found our bodies lost in paradise like castaways in Marina Del Rey. We said goodbye in Marina Del Rey. Thank you. So that song was written on an airplane napkin that I borrowed from a stewardess and a pen. And I'm going to tell you all this story about that, and you're going to go, no, you didn't. And I told that steward, I said, I'm going to write a song on this napkin. I said, if it's a hit, I'll give you 10% of it. And I got back to Nashville and finished it with Dykes, and George grabbed it up and cut it, and she actually gave me her number, and I called her, and her boyfriend told me to go away. And I'm glad he did. That actually happened. 'Cause I was going to give her 10% of it. For loaning me the paper and the pen to write it with. I can afford my own now. So that song did really well for us, and then after that first record, George made it a point that every album he cut, he'd call me a week ahead of time and let me know when he was going into the studio, and that the Monday of the day that he had his first sessions, I was to be in his office at 10 o'clock, and we've done that for 35 years. So, Dykes and I burn each other out, and it happens a lot. You write with somebody for, a couple years, 3 years, and you kind of burn each other out and move on to greener pastures. And I was sitting in a bar one night, and the Fiddler's Inn in Nashville. And Jeannie Seeley walked in there and made a beeline to my table. I sat by myself. I didn't know her. I sure as hell knew who she was. And she sat down and she said, "You're that kid songwriter I've been hearing about, ain't you?" I said, "Well, I guess so." Because back in those days, there wasn't any kids doing what like there are now. Everybody was 35, 40, 50 years old writing songs. Wasn't 18, no 20, 25-year-olds doing that. And I was having success. And she said, "I got somebody I want you to meet." And I said, "Well, who might that be?" And she said, "Hank Cochran." And I about fell out of my chair. Because in my mind, he was there. And I was way down here. And she said, if you want to follow me, I'll take you up there right now. He wants to meet you. And I got in my car and followed her up to Hendersonville, Tennessee, and this was 10 o'clock at night. And walked in his house, and he's sitting there drinking a Pabst Blue Ribbon. About one sheet in the wind. And he goes, "Well, I sure been wanting to meet you." And I was stunned. "Play me a song." And 4 hours later, he said, "Okay, that's enough." And he said, "You won't go to the Bahamas in the morning?" I've known this guy 4 hours, and he goes, "You want to go to the Bahamas in the morning?" I thought, is this my day, lucky day, or what? So at 10 o'clock the next morning, I was getting on the plane to Fort Lauderdale to go to Green Turtle Key with him. And we got there, and he immediately went below deck and stayed down there 4 days. And the captain of the boat was a guy named Norman, and I asked Norman on the second day, I says, he ever gonna come out of there? And he goes, yeah, he'll come out when he's ready. So I'm wreaking havoc on the island at Miss Emily's, where Red Lane wrote Miss Emily. And a few other choice bars. And sure enough, fourth day he came out of there and it was game on. And we started writing songs, and it became a habit of ours. We'd write 3 or 4 days and then sleep for 2 or 3 days because we were so damn tired, trashing ourselves on whiskey and whatever else we could get our hands on. Got up one morning, he goes, we're going to Miami today. And I'm like, you're the boss. I'd had this idea for a while, and we got down there and we wrote this. Everybody talks about the California quakes. First time I ever felt your shake was in Miami. When Amy touched me, oh, it shook me. Told her I loved her and I wanted to stay. Said, be sure, boy, and I'll call you in L.A. Even in the taxi I could hear my telephone ring, calling me in Miami. Miami. What took you so long? I thought you'd never call. Miami, oh Miami, Miami, Miami loves me after all. So we wrote that song the first day we were down there. Old Royce Porter showed up, and 3 of us wrote that. And then the next day we wrote Homecoming 63. I was so proud you went with me. Everyone turned their head when we walked in. They said, look at that perfect pair, as you blushed from all the stairs, and my chest swelled up with pride, grinning from ear to ear inside. Homecoming 63. You hit home with the love you gave to me. Turn me on to ecstasy. Homecoming 63. So we'd had a pretty good couple of days. And old Dino lit into the whiskey. And by 4 o'clock the next morning, I had drunk myself sober. Literally. I drank that whole damn bottle of liquor and drunk myself sober as a judge. But I was tired. That's a workout. And I'm sitting there on the boat, and it's me and Hank, 4 o'clock in the damn morning. And I looked over at him and I said, well, excuse me, but I think you got my chair. That one not taken, I don't mind if you said it. And he looked at me and he goes, have you wrote that? And I said, no. He said, well, we're about to right now. And I'm like, shit. So we lit into her. Oh, that was not taken, I don't mind if you said it. I'll be glad to share, yeah, it's usually back here on Friday night. Oh, if you don't mind, could I talk you out of a lie? Well, thank you. Could I drink you a bite? Oh, listen to me. What I mean is, can I buy you a drink? Anything you please. Oh, you're welcome. Well, I don't think I caught your name. Are you waiting for someone to meet you here? Well, that makes two of us glad you came. No, I don't know the name of the band, but they're good, aren't they? Would you like to dance? Yeah, I like this song too. It reminds me of you and me, baby. Do you think there's a chance that later on I could drive you home? No, I don't mind at all. Oh, I like you too, and to tell you the truth, that wasn't my chair after all. Oh, I like you too, and to tell you the truth, oh, that wasn't my chair after all. Do, 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 do. Thank you. I appreciate that. There's a few little tidbits about that song I'll tell you about that. Pretty funny, really. The first verse to that song just fell on paper just as fast as I could write it down. Just, excuse me, but I think you got my chair, yada, yada, yada. And then we got stuck, and we got stuck big time. And if you know Hank, you start great and get greater. You don't start good and get better. And once we had that first verse, we knew we were on to something really good melodically and lyrically. And like I said, we got stuck. And Hank got up and started walking around the boat, which was not unusual. He did that all the time, pulling on that beard. And 15 minutes go by, and he's walking around that boat, and I'm sitting in there thinking my brains out. What can we say in this second verse? And he walks back in there and he goes, how about this? He goes, thank you, can I drink you a bottle? Listen to me, what I mean is, can I buy you a drink, anything you please? And I thought two things. He has lost his ever-loving mind, or that's one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard him say. I'm going to go with number two. And then the really funny part of that story was I wrote all the melodies to everything, all of it, and always did. It was just part of the deal. And but for some reason, I could not tie this song up melodically. And he goes, after about 30 minutes of me on ear searching, he goes, play this. And I said, we can't play that. And then he goes, well, why not? And I said, because that's crazy for crying, crazy for trying. And he looked at me with this big old possum-eating briars grin and goes, well, Willie won't mind. Now let me tell you why Willie wouldn't mind. So in the 60s, Hank had a publishing deal with Pamper Music in Hendersonville and was having big records on Patsy Cline and Everybody and Her Brother and making a ton of money. And his publisher decided to up the ante and raise his draw every year by $25,000. In the 60s, that's big money. And Hank told him no. He said, I've got a buddy named Willie Nelson, and he's a great songwriter. I said, he said, we're going to take that $25,000 and you're going to sign him to Pamper Music. And that's what they did. And Willie was always thankful of that start and that break, and he was fine with it with Hank, but he was mad as hell at me for it. Because after that song, we wrote that thing, we'd actually go out with Willie a lot and hang out, and Hank could get up and play 4 or 5 songs and open the show. We will, and I'd sit over there in the corner hoping he didn't see me. But he kind of lightened up here. About 20 years ago, he let it go a little bit. So we write those 3 songs in 3 days. And the next day, I get a phone call. And it's George Strait. And we've been gone a long time. He goes, where are you and when are you coming back? And I said, I'm not telling you where I'm at, and I may not ever come back. He said, well, I'm fixing to cut again and need some songs. So I hung up the phone and I looked at Hank and I said, Hank, that was Strait. He's needing songs. You want to go back to Nashville? And he goes, well, not really, but if we've got to, we've got to. So we lit out for Nashville and flew back and immediately set up a demo session and doing Homecoming, Miami, The Chair, and a couple more things we'd written. And I was singing vocals on The Chair. I was in the vocal booth, set a headset on, and I looked through the glass and I noticed Hank and Royce were gone. And I asked the engineer, I said, well, where are they? And he said, well, they're over here in this other room writing a song, I think. And I said, well, not on my damn session, they're not, without me. So I laid the headphones down and I walk over there and sling that door open. Hank's like a kid with his hand caught in a cookie jar, and he goes, dang. I said, what are y'all doing? acting pissed off. And he goes, listen to this idea Royce has got. And they played me a little bit of it, and he goes, what do you think? I said, man, that's terrible. And then he goes, well, you want in on it or not? And I knew better. I said, all right, I'll help you finish it. So we wrote the chorus and the last couple of verses, and we got done with it, and he goes, now what do you think? And I said, I hate it still. And the reason I did, people, was I didn't want to be, I was a serious songwriter. I did not want to be labeled a funny songwriter. I just did not care for that at all. And so to this day, I still don't care particularly for this song. But it made a shit pot load of money. If you leave me, I won't miss you, and I won't ever take you back. I won't follow or try to find you, 'cause I don't love you. Now if you'll buy that, I got some oceanfront property in Arizona. From my front porch you can see the sea. Got some oceanfront property in Arizona. You'll buy that, I'll throw the Golden Gate in free. I don't worship the ground you walk on. I never have, and that's a fact. I won't follow or try to find you, 'cause I don't love you. Now if you'll buy that, I got some oceanfront property in Arizona. From my front porch you can see the sea. Got some oceanfront property in Arizona. You'll buy that, I'll throw the Golden Gate in free. If you buy that, I'll throw the Golden Gate in free. That song came in the charts at #1 and sold 1 million records in 7 days. And the reason I didn't like it, when we were writing that song, Royce would keep going, if you'll buy that, I'll throw the Golden Gate Bridge in free. And he wore me out with that. Every time we get to the end of that, he'd throw that bridge in there, Golden Gate Bridge. And I told him finally, I said, Royce, look, if they don't know what the damn Golden Gate is, they ain't gonna get this song anyway. He finally relented. But in a matter, of 6 or 7 days, we'd wrote those 4 songs. And just an incredible string of luck, run of luck. Blessed with some real incredible songs in a short span of time. And man, the next couple of years, I was having some fun. And everything was hunky-dory. So in the meantime, we stayed around Nashville for a little bit. It was along that same time that I was back over, believe it or not, at Fiddler's Inn one night, having a few brews. And I heard this guy singing. And I thought to myself, that son of a gun is good. And I mean good. And when he got through, I introduced myself to him, and his name was Vern Gosden. And I asked him, I said, have you got a record deal? And he said, no. He said, me and my cousin had one in California, but I don't have one now. And I said, man, you need one. If anybody needs a record deal right now, you need a record deal. So I called Hank. So Hank was the one that knew every damn record label head and producer in town. And I said, Hank, you got to come hear this guy. He's something else. And he goes, I'll be down there tomorrow night. And sure enough, he came down the next night and heard Vern sing 2 or 3 songs, and that was it. And 3 days later, we're standing in front of Bob Montgomery at Capitol Records, and Vern sings him 2 songs, and he says, I'll sign you right now. And then he looked at us, and he said, you 3, go write me an album. And we need some songs, because we want to get on this right away. And so we took off for Gatlinburg. Hank had a cabin up there, and when we weren't on the boat, and we were stateside a lot of times, we were up in Gatlinburg and hiding out. They got a vintage Victrola 1951, full of my favorite records that I grew up on. They got old Hank and Lefty and there's B-24. Set 'em up, Joe, and play walking the floor. Set 'em up, Joe, and play walking the floor. I'm gonna spend the night like every night before, playing E.T., gonna play him some more. I gotta have a shot of them old troubadours. Set 'em up, Joe, and play walking the floor. Set 'em up, Joe, and play walking the floor. Well, all my neon neighbors, they like what I play. They've heard her every night since she walked away. Every day they replace old B-24, 'cause every night I run the needle through, walking the floor. Every night I run the needle through, walking the floor. I'm gonna spend the night like every night before, playing E.T., gonna play him some more. I gotta have a shot of them old troubadours. Set 'em up, Joe, and play walking the floor. Set 'em up, Joe, and play walking the floor. I said, set 'em up, Joe, and play walking the floor. Set 'em up, Joe, and play walking the floor. Thank you. We wrote that, and then we wrote this. Is it raining at your house? Like it is at mine. I always mess these lyrics up. Do you miss me when the phone rings? Is it cloudy all the time? Does the thunder and lightning even when that old sun shines. Is it raining at your house like it's raining in mine? So we got Vern off to a pretty good start, and then things were still rocking along pretty good, getting cuts on straight, and Keith Whitley and George and hell, Steve Warner and the Marshall Tucker Band and everybody in Wayne Newton. Believe it or not. And the guy responsible for the Wayne Newton and the Marshall Tucker was my publisher at the time, Larry Butler. And when Larry and I met, it was a lot similar to Hank and I just got real blessed, people, by being taken under the wing of these people. Because Larry Butler was the only country music producer ever to win a Grammy for a country song. To this day. And produced some monster records on Kenny Rogers and Dottie West, and the list went on and on and on. And I'll play you a little bit of a thing that the Marshall Tucker Band did. Which, by the way, 2 weeks ago, they played my festival in Crested Butte, Colorado, and I got up and sang with them. And it was more fun than I've had in a long time. I blow out the candle, 'cause I'd rather be surrounded by the darkness to drink away your memory, hanging out in smoky places, talking to no-name faces. It's one of my favorite places to get over you, hanging out in smoky places, talking to no-name faces. It's one of my favorite places to get over you. And don't ask me to play the Wayne Newton song. But yeah, I was, Larry and I hit it off, and we lived down here in condos, Seaspray, for about a year. Had more fun than law allowed, and wrote a lot of great music together. And again, he was like a dad to me. And Miss Peggy was like a sister to me, and she kept us in line pretty well. Did her best to, anyway. Wasn't not much she could do with me, but every now and then I'd relent. But I still love her to this day. So anyway, as time does, it finally caught up with me, and I went into rehab in 84, I think 85, because I had a brand new baby girl coming, and I wanted to be a good dad, so I went to the Betty Ford Center in Rancho Mirage, California. It worked pretty good for a pretty good long time. But you can't take the hell out of a hellraiser. But to this day and age, I don't drink. I'm not good at it. Suffice all that to say that that little girl I had is now 29 years old, and her name's Jessie Jo Dillon, and she just got a Luke Bryan cut. She's got Brandy Clark's new single, and her first #1 record was this. If I can remember it. Come on, mind, work. I'll play it in a minute for you. I'll get back to it, but anyway, it went #1 and got her off my payroll. He looks up from second base. Dad's up in the stands. He saw the hit, the run, the slide. There ain't no bigger fan. In the parking lot after the game, he said, "Dad, I thought you had a plane to catch." His dad just smiled and said, "Yeah, son, I did." But life's not the breath you take, the breathing in and out that get you through the day. Ain't what it's all about. You just might miss the point if you don't slow down the pace. It's not the breath you take, but the moments that take your breath away. Well, fast forward 15 years and 1,000 miles away. Boy's built a life, he's got a wife and a baby due today. Here's a voice say, "I made it, son." He said, "I told you, Dad, you didn't have to come." His dad just smiled and said, "Yeah, son, I did." Cause life's not the breath you take, the breathing in and out that get you through the day. Ain't what it's all about. You just might miss the point if you don't slow down the pace. It's not the breath you take, but the moments that take your breath away. Just like it took my breath when she was born, like it took my breath away when Dad took his last that morn. Life's not the breath you take, the breathing in and out that get you through the day. Ain't what it's all about. You just might miss the point if you don't slow down the pace. It's not the breath you take, but the moments that take your breath away. Thank you. When she was 18, she called me up and she said, "Dad," no, she said, "I want as far away from Mom as I can get." And I said, "I do too." So I took her to California, put her in college, and she came back a year later just just overnight completely different person, and was just blistering words on paper. And she called me up and told me about this idea that I just played you all, and wanted to know if I wanted to write it. And I was like, well, duh. And I had a writing session with Casey Beathard the next day, who is great, phenomenal writer, and asked him if he minded if she came in on the right, and he said, of course not, and we did, and wrote the song, and George cut it. Like I said, it went to #1, got nominated for a Grammy, and man, when that happened, she just dug in her heels. And she's working a lot harder today than I am. But she's doing really well. And then I have a 16-year-old. Well, she'll be 17 in 3 days. Her name is Dillon. And world, look out. She's all I was and then some. That kid is. Not one bit shy either. And she already has they're trying to get me to let her record right now, and I won't do it. Because I want her to finish school, and then I'll turn her loose. And son, let me tell you, she's pretty amazing. And then my other 3 kids are all musically inclined, but the oldest is a great singer and could give a damn less about it. And then my boys are, they just don't have to get up and go. They want to, but then they don't want to work hard enough for it. So, but one made the dean's list last month, so I'm proud of that. You know, all these years and all this time, George and I had threatened to write together. And we never did. Because our paths just would go in opposite directions. You know, he was so busy, and so was I. I had 4 record deals and touring and writing and all that, and we never got around to it till about 8 years ago. Or maybe not that long, 6 years ago. And he called me up one day and he said, hey, Bubba and I, that's his son, we've been down here in San Antonio working on some songs and want to know if you'll come on down and help us finish them. And I said, you just want the big dog to come down there and clean up your mess, don't you? And he kind of laughed and said, yeah. I knew he would be a great songwriter because he's a great song picker. He picks all of his singles, and with a little persuasion, sometimes I can get him to pick mine, but I didn't know about Bubba. And got there and was pleasantly surprised. This was Bubba's idea. I'm not gonna lay around and whine and moan. 'Cause somebody done me wrong. Don't think for a minute that I'm gonna sit around, sing some old sad song. I believe in half full, not a half empty glass. Every day I wake up knowing it could be my last. I ain't here for a long time, I'm here for a good time. Bring on the sunshine, hell with that red wine, pour me some moonshine. And when I'm gone, put it in stone. He left nothing behind. I ain't here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. Yeah, folks are always dreaming about what they like to do. I like to do just what I like. Take that chance and dance that dance. Might be wrong, but then again it might be right. There's no way of knowing what tomorrow brings. Life's too short to waste it, folks. I said bring on anything. I ain't here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. Bring on the sunshine, hell with that red wine. Pour me some moonshine. And when I'm gone, put it in stone. He left nothing behind. I ain't here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. When I'm gone, put it in stone. He left nothing behind. I ain't here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. So yeah, we done good together, and we've written, I don't know, 15, 20 songs, and he's cut a few of them. It's been fun, and a lot of people ask me what the most favorite song I ever wrote was. And normally when you ask a songwriter that, they'll go, well, they're all like my children. My little babies, I love them all the same. Well, folks, I can tell you one thing right now. I've got some ugly damn kids, if that's the case. But The Chair, I've always loved that song simply because of the melody and the lyric, and I think that song expressed who I was as a writer more than any other thing I ever wrote, coupled with this next thing I'm going to play. And had a guy named Mike Whalen who was my song plugger, and song pluggers are guys in Nashville who go pitch your songs when you get through with them to the record labels and the artists. And he called me up one day and he asked me, what would you think about writing with Bill Anderson? And I said, duh. Whispering Bill. And I did not know Bill personally. I knew of his songs, obviously, and was flattered that truly that he'd even consider writing with me, because he is such a great songwriter. And so Mike set up a Monday and a Tuesday for us to write, and gave me Bill's number, and I called him and we talked, and I said, well, meet me at Pancake Pantry in Nashville Monday morning. We'll have breakfast and then go right ahead. And we had breakfast and went to my office, and the problem was he started telling Roger Miller stories. Him and Roger Miller came to Nashville at the same time, and man, he told me some stuff. I was laying in the floor dying laughing for about 5 hours, and the day just got away. And I said, all right, we're going to come in here tomorrow on the Hammer one. So we came in the next day, and we started on a song about 10 o'clock, and by noon, it was the second worst piece of shit that I'd ever been a part of. And I told him, I said, look, normally I'd be in my car on my way to my ranch right now. But I can't fathom walking out of this room and not having written a great song with you. And so he pulled out a sheet of paper out of his briefcase, and I read it. I'd have spent a lot more time in the pouring rain without an umbrella covering my head. And I'd have stood up to that bully when he pushed and called me names. But I was too afraid. And I'd have gone on and saw Elvis that night he came to town. Mama said I couldn't. And I'd have went skinny dipping with Jenny Carson that time she dared me to. And I didn't. Oh, I'd done a lot of things different. I wish I'd have spent more time with my dad when he was alive. No, I don't have the chance. And I wish I'd have told my brother how much I loved him before we went off to war. But I just shook his hand. And I wish I'd have went to church on Sunday when my grandma begged me to. But I was afraid of God. And I wish I would have listened when they said, boy, you're gonna wish you hadn't. But I wouldn't. Oh, I'd done a lot of things different. People say they wouldn't change a thing, even if they could. But I would. There's this red dress she wanted one time, so bad she could taste it. I should have bought it, but I didn't. She wanted to paint our bedroom yellow and trim it in blues and greens. But I wouldn't let her. Wouldn't have hurt nothing. And she loved to be held and kissed and touched. But I didn't do it, not nearly enough. And if I'd have known that dance was gonna be our last, I'd have had that band play on and on, on and on. Oh, I'd done a lot of things different. People say they wouldn't change a thing, even if they could. But I would. Oh, I'd done a lot of things. Hell, I think we'd all do a lot of things different. Thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it. God love you. Appreciate you. Thanks for your support. This was Bubba's idea.